Hey everyone, welcome back to my review series on the films of 1973. I wanted to give a shout out to Benway20, who recommended that I do this picture, Mean Streets, directed by Martin Scorsese. My next video is on Badlands, which I've already shot, but I forgot to mention that not only Benway20 and 99 Filmo recommended I do that one as well, but that one's coming up next. Next in the list, anyway. But it's probably already uploaded by the time you're watching this. Mean Streets, yeah. I was actually involved with another person here on YouTube a couple years back and doing a whole series on Martin Scorsese. We picked 12 movies of his to talk about. I managed to get through 10 of them before we had to call it quits early. But Mean Streets was actually not on the list at the time. It wasn't something that I really suggested, nor Victoria, my partner, for the series. But it's an important film in Martin Scorsese's career. It's kind of his Reservoir Dogs, if you will. Although Reservoir Dogs isn't, something that was necessarily a personal project for Quentin. He took a lot of inspiration from films that he'd seen, whereas Scorsese really took inspiration from his own life, from the place that he lives, the culture that he grew up with. He had directed a film a few years earlier called Who's That Knocking on My Door, which is one of my favorite Scorsese films. And Mean Streets is sort of like a slightly bigger budget version of it, although there's more violence and what have you, and rough stuff happening than in Who's That Knocking on My Door. Harvey Keitel plays the lead in both films, and in both films he's torn between the guys he hangs out with, spending time between the guys he hangs out with and trying to make it in New York in the 70s, of course, and a woman that he's interested in. And in the case of Mean Streets, the woman happens to be the cousin of the Robert De Niro character named Johnny Boy. Harvey Keitel's character's name is Charlie. The two of them, they hang out a lot, Keitel and De Niro. Johnny Boy is a bit of a troublemaker, to say the least. The very first scene we see him basically throwing a makeshift bomb into a mailbox and then dashing off as the mailbox gets blown sky high. Turns out Johnny Boy is not a very responsible person. He owes money to people all over town, he's borrowing constantly, and not paying people back, and just blowing it on women and drinks. Just having a grand old time, and without a care in the world, really, and a lot of people are really angry at him. And since Keitel is a good friend of his, he's in a bit of trouble himself, because one of the guys De Niro owes money to. Excuse me, I'm switching back and forth between actor and character names. I'll just stick with the character names. One of the guys Johnny Boy owes money to is named Michael, and Michael took basically Charlie's word that Johnny Boy would make good on his debt and pay him back in a timely fashion, which of course Johnny Boy has not done. So Michael is holding Charlie responsible for Johnny Boy paying him back as well. And this doesn't sit well with Charlie, really. He's sick and tired of always having to cover and make excuses for Johnny Boy. He has some other stuff going on. The cousin, Johnny Boy's cousin, the woman that he's seeing, basically lives in his building, and he's been told by his uncle to keep an eye on her. I forget why exactly. Obviously, Keitel and his uncle are not related to Johnny Boy and his cousin, whom Keitel's having a relationship with. But it's not really clear to me exactly why Keitel's uncle, Charlie's uncle, would want this girl looked after, but she's important for some reason. Anyway, Charlie wasn't supposed to start sleeping with her, he was just supposed to watch out for her, and so if his uncle is a very popular and very well-respected and feared man in the community that they live in, finds out about this, he's going to be in a lot of trouble, especially since Charlie wants his uncle's help in getting him basically a restaurant to run. Charlie wants to be legit. He doesn't want to keep running numbers and scraping a living through extra legal means. He wants his own business and, just his own life, basically. So things get from bad to worse over the course of the movie. Johnny Boy continues to piss people off and not pay people back and just constantly losing money. There's a great sequence early in the movie in which Charlie is asking him, so what about the money? Are you going to pay Michael back? Are you going to pay these people back? And Johnny Boy cooks up this really long, elaborate story about all the stuff that's happened to him, and it's just BS from beginning to end. I mean, you can tell. And Keitel is just standing there, smiling at him, going, okay, yeah, all right, and then finally smacks him in the head. What's the matter with you? You know, you trying to pull that on me? Seriously, who do you think you're talking to? Who else is in this movie? Victor Argo, who's been in a number of other gangster pictures. I'm pretty sure he's been in other Scorsese films. He was in The Last Temptation of Christ, I know, playing one of the disciples. Aside from that, I'm having a hard time remembering. He's probably in Raging Bull. Yeah, I'm not really too sure. There's a couple other guys who are recognizable. Of course, Scorsese himself is in the film, but very, very briefly plays one of Michael's lackeys. I think the biggest role that Scorsese actually took in one of his own films is the one of Travis Bickle's customers in Taxi Driver. And the only reason he took that part is because the actor was going to be in that scene dropped out, so Scorsese had to fill in at the last second. Of course, Keitel has been in a number of Scorsese movies. He played Judas in The Last Temptation of Christ, in addition to the two I already mentioned. And De Niro, of course, has been in many Scorsese films: Cape Fear, Raging Bull, Goodfellas, The Last Waltz, Taxi Driver, New York, New York, The King of Comedy, Casino. You know, he's been in a whole bunch of them. Someday they'll probably get around to working together again, but Scorsese really seems to be enamored with Leo DiCaprio, so he's been his leading man in like 5 of the last 6 movies that he's done. He was, you know, the only recent movie that Scorsese directed that DiCaprio wasn't in was in Hugo, but he's in his next film too, The Wolf of Wall Street. So this has never been really one of my favorite Scorsese movies. It's a pretty scrappy movie. It's pretty grungy looking, almost as grungy as the Ralph Bakshi movie I talked about previously, Heavy Traffic. It's really sort of a low style, you know, not very flashy. There's a little bit of flashy camera work and editing, but for the most part, it's pretty straightforward in the way it's shot and cut. But I remember just sort of being bored by a lot of it. But on this particular occasion, when I screened it for myself again yesterday, I probably liked it the most out of all the times I've seen it. Mostly because, like with Papillon, I knew what I was getting into, or with, you know, some of the other sort of difficult art movies. You know, if I've seen them a couple times, I know what I'm getting into, then it's a little bit easier to take, and I'm not sitting there going, how much longer is this going to go on for? Because, like with a lot of Scorsese movies, a lot of scenes tend to play on as longer than they have to, with characters kind of repeating themselves and insulting each other just a few more times. And there's actually a pretty long kind of scene at the end where Johnny Boy and his cousin, and I can't remember her name, of course, and Charlie, they go for a drive and they're arguing and just roaming around town and stuff like that. And that scene goes on for a little longer than it has to. What's notable also about this movie is the music, of course. They used Be My Baby during the opening credits, which is very iconic, and that was probably a big influence on Quentin Tarantino and his sort of music choices in his first 3 films. There's no score in Mean Streets, just songs. And that's true with a number of other Scorsese pictures. Goodfellas, I believe, has no original score, just songs. And in Tarantino's first 3 movies, there's also no score, just songs that he acquired the rights to and presented in the film. Dogs and Pulp Fiction and Jackie Brown, of course. So yeah, I liked the movie overall. Enjoyed it a lot this last time. Again, not one of my favorite Scorsese movies. I prefer Goodfellas and Cape Fear and After Hours, The Departed, flashier ones, I guess you could say. But it's a decent flick, if it's something that is the kind of thing that you like. Yeah, there's Mean Streets for you. And I've got a couple more coming up, and then I'll have more review videos next week. So, yeah, barreling through 1973. It's been fun. Oh, there was one other person I wanted to mention here. I don't remember her username, but I'm going to leave a link in the description below. I just subscribed to her recently, and she's about to start a series on movies that just came out generally during the 1970s. I think she's going to do one a week every Sunday. Sorry, I don't remember offhand what her name is, but The link will be in the description below, as well as the playlist, which will have all the films that I've done for my series so far. So if there's anything that you want to recommend from that year, check out what I've already done and see if there's something else. I have a list, basically, of 1973 movies that I'd like to do. But if you want to recommend one in particular, then I'll move that, a little bit higher on the list right there with the other guys. Recommendations get priority around here. So thank you very much again for watching. Another 2 videos on 73 that I'm about to post, of course. So hope you'll take a look at those. Hope you'll enjoy them. Thanks very much. See you again real soon.